Okay, we're live, everybody. Welcome to the Riley Lewis Show. I am your host, Riley Lewis. I'm joined by a guest, a very long time friend, someone I knew growing up, actually, which is very
Yep.
cool. Yeah. So, do you prefer Jack or John? Just
Most people I'm like friends with call me Jack, and then John's just kind of like a formal thing that I only use with like teachers call me John, or like the military calls me John, but
right.
that's just like because they look at the paperwork.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
says on my birth certificate. But like my boss and like my family and a lot of people know me as Jack.
Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, Jack, and where you are right now in your life, what you've been doing the last few years, and where you're going now? Just before we
Sure.
jump in.
I
Yeah.
I've been working as a computer repair technician, managing small business in Encinitas and Oceanside. And while I'm going to school, studying computer engineering now at University of California, Santa Barbara, and doing Army ROTC. So when I graduate, I have the hopes of commissioning as a second lieutenant in the United States Army.
Okay. So.
And I haven't gotten a haircut because like Corona, so like that's why my hair is like super long. Normally it'd be looking more like yours,
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say that's funny because
yeah,
for me, super long was way down past my shoulders. I
it's funny. I
yeah,
I
go
used
ahead.
to like to wear it short, but like after you have people tell you for a long time that like, oh, you need to shave, or like this would be unacceptable. Like you could see a little stubble. Have to shave like every day, and your hair has to be cut once a month probably. um, so it's been it's been nice to just grow it out.
For just a few months, yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna like just buzz like all of it off here pretty
Yeah,
soon. But
absolutely, you are.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting though. I mean, you must be excited, right?
yeah. I hope. Well, I want to move up there, so I hope the whole like experience is still kind of intact. That it doesn't change
Right.
too much due to
Absolutely.
COVID.
I can speak about my program. We're doing a hybrid model, but I plan on seeing all of my teachers in person for the first day of classes. So I think that is something hopefully that you will also be able to do when the fall term begins.
Yeah, the UC system has pretty much said that they're gonna do like half the instruction online, and then the
Right.
other half in person.
That's cool. Yeah. So you get a
Mhm.
taste. That's cool. That's very cool. That
Yeah,
shouldn't be too bad then. So that said, let's get into the fun stuff. So I'd like to honestly go all the way back and just sort of go back to your interpretation of 2016, the events leading up to the election of 2016, and then frankly,
yeah.
how do you think things have been going the last we'll say from 2017 Jan 1 to 2019, and then 2020 has been a year on its own that we can
Are
look
you
at.
are you talking about like a like political
Yeah,
climate
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
atmosphere? Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
sure. Well, I actually predicted in 2016 that Donald Trump was going to win. I didn't vote for him. I actually voted for Hillary Clinton. Um, and I am a Republican at the same time, but um, I thought he was going to beat her, and a lot of people didn't agree with me, but the rest is history there. There's a lot of reasons why. I just think there's so much disdain for like both candidates that it was just kind of it wasn't going to be like a landslide victory that a lot of people were thinking it was going to be.
Right,
Um,
right. I mean, all the
I think if
polls and
like yeah, I mean like no matter which way it went, I knew it was going to be close, but I was predicting that Trump had a higher likelihood of winning for a few different reasons.
So I'd love to hear those reasons, and also just out of curiosity, how far in advance did you make that prediction about the turnout? Was it a month out?
Several months.
Okay. Okay.
And it like there's like a lot of stuff that changed after 2016. Like I used to um
Do you mean change
pretty
for
much get
you, change for the
change for
world? Like,
me, and like just stuff that I observed. Like I used to get all my news from CNN back like 2015, 2016, especially around the election time. And then after Donald Trump got elected, like CNN, I used to, it was like my go-to news source, and I thought it was very respectable journalism. And then after Donald Trump got elected, it just turned into the Donald Trump show 24/7. Where they're talking about him all the time, every little thing that he says, all that stuff. So I mean, like I just couldn't take that all the time, So I just switched to different networks. I started reading and watching CNBC mainly because I'm really interested in the economy and stocks. I do a lot of stock trading. I've actually traded stocks since I was 18,
oh,
and
wow.
I've been trading options since I was 21, so for 2 years now.
Okay. So
Hmm.
let me ask you about some of the. I mean, you said you thought it'd be close, but you mentioned a disdain for
Yeah,
both of the political
I
candidates. I'd like to make a point, if I could, just in that.
yeah, sure.
To your point, there was so much disdain that well over 100 million people decided not to vote. So that was also a narrow election when 1/3 of the country decides not to vote. At least 1/3 of the country, right? So that's a huge variable that we'll see in
Hmm.
2020 because of the same. We don't know. There could be, in theory, a historic turnout if, even half that number of people decide to vote this time.
I've
So,
I've seen some statistics. I can't remember exactly what they said, and there might have been less in 2016 than in 2012. Or yeah, yeah, 2012.
yeah.
But uh, pretty much since like George Bush, like the election turnouts, I believe, have been like going up in numbers of like voter turnout.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well,
That's
like
good to hear.
I mean, don't quote me on it, but
Okay,
like
okay.
I've read some stuff that
Right.
I'd have to look it up.
I would feel like
Uh,
people would be
that's
more.
why like I'm hesitant to like talk about a lot of stuff like that because just like I don't have all the facts just like right in front of me. And I think with like the whole like polarization of politics recently, um, it's it's become hard to talk about because people just
I know what you're
feel
gonna say. Yeah,
just
I mean, I
like
I'm feeling it. Yeah,
they make judgments immediately.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. I'm trying to not do that, by the way.
yeah,
Absolutely. I just want to listen. I'm really just interested in what other, frankly, young people have to say about what's going on. I
sure.
definitely think there are a lot of interesting things going on for a lot of reasons. And if you want, we could jump to something maybe you are more comfortable with, like coronavirus 2020 stuff, because there's been a lot that's just gone on even this year. It's been a heck of a
Yeah.
year for the world overall. Um,
Hmm.
and I'd love to hear what you're feeling about 2020. Maybe maybe some comparing and contrasting between how you felt in 2016 and what you're feeling now, if
Hmm.
there is some.
Well,
Some.
I have some stories of maybe how like some other people are feeling. I mean, people
Yeah.
are definitely really tense. I was at the store one time that I work at, and
Describe just for everyone where you work again as a repair
yeah, it's
technician.
a repair shop, and so like I'm the only guy in there
Oh wow.
on
Okay.
certain days. Like other days, we'll have like a full team, but I just will run the store on my own on certain days. And so a woman came in and her son they had an issue with the computer, They both had masks on. This was kind of like earlier on, before when there was like a lot of debate about masks, and now it's like kind of there's not as much debate about it. But this was like when people were really, vocal about it, and I think that's significantly died down more now. But um, this man walked in without a mask, and everyone else in the room was wearing the mask. You could tell that the woman was immediately uneasy by his presence, and she asked him to, get away from her because she felt that he was standing too close to her. And this is like an older gentleman too. They're both at least middle aged, maybe like around like 40, 50 years old. And am I allowed to cuss? Like,
You
or do
are,
I?
You definitely
Okay.
are.
So the old man pretty much tells the woman, like she starts, telling like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Like, don't you know that like you're at risk because you're older, everything like that. She's like, I'm at risk, and then she's like saying that she had like diabetes and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, I'm helping another customer at the front. And I should have only had one person at the store at a time. That's kind of like our policy right now. But I was just kind of helping this lady, and then the one lady and her son walked in, and they were like standing in like the very other corner, like well over 6 feet away. So I was like, okay, fine. But then this old man walked in, and just like entropy ensued.
The bull in
And
the china
so
shop.
right, and so I'm helping this other lady, and then I just hear this man yell, don't give me that fascist crap. And then, the woman is just taken aback, and then, now she's yelling at him. And like, long story short, I had to tell the guy, and I believe I was fair about it. I told him, I said, sir, she was here first, so I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside because you're making her feel uncomfortable, and she was here first. If you were here first, I'd ask her to wait outside. But, she was here first. And so, he agreed. And then by the time I had helped everyone, he just left. But, everyone like thanked me for asking him to wait outside. But, I would have helped him if he didn't have a mask on. I'm not, too worried. But yeah, I don't know. I wear a mask. I wear a mask when I'm at work. And when I'm required to.
Yeah.
But if I go outside to like exercise, I don't wear one.
It's interesting that it's become such a symbol, like a bit like a bold symbol. People will look at you and gawk if you either are wearing one or are not wearing one, and when you are not.
Yeah.
I have micro examples that are similar. They're anecdotal, but say I'm at a stoplight and I'm not wearing one because I'm alone in my car coming back from a trail where I was just running alone.
Yeah.
By the way, and I mean literally alone, as in I might not see anybody for the full 1.5 hours I'm out there. It's just kind of a low key private trail. Not many people go there. So, and I just happen to know about it because just where I'm living right now. So I go there because it's local and not many people know about it. So I don't wear a mask. I bring one with me, but I don't really have to wear it that much. But I know it's such a symbol, and I'll be in the car and someone will be wearing theirs on while they're in their car alone. I think that's a little silly. And they'll look at me, and it's just like, what are you looking at? I'm alone in the car. I don't know. It's just become such a.
I think most people agree that
It's a battleground.
wearing masks in cars are silly. That being said, I was in the store once by myself. Like, there's no one else in the store. And I have the doors open, so there's like airflow, and we have a couple like air filter units like in the front that are just like sucking in and like filtering air, and then we got the doors open too, so there's fresh air coming in. I wear gloves, mask. We like wipe down everything. We take it like super seriously. But if I'm in the store by myself, I'm not gonna have a mask on, right? Like, same kind of idea as the car.
Yeah.
And so I was I was working without a mask on, and a woman saw me working, and she didn't even come in. She just looked in through the window and then wrote a bad review. And then the business owner called me and was like, "Dude, why aren't you wearing a mask?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And I just like, so now I like
Wow.
have to wear one at all times, which is a little bit frustrating, but um, hopefully it won't be too much longer. I've been doing a lot of reading about some of the different companies that are trying to make a vaccine for COVID-19, and it's actually pretty interesting. There's a lot of Moderna, I believe, is
Yeah, they
in
are.
third stage
Yeah.
human clinical trials for a COVID-19 vaccine, and I'm actually invested in Pfizer, and they're in like early stage human clinical trials. So if Moderna fails, then I think Pfizer will probably be able to solve it. They're pretty much the giant 300-pound gorilla when it comes to biotech stocks. Uh,
Right. Absolutely.
yeah,
So let's talk more about some 2020 coronavirus stuff. There are a lot of theories just out there floating. Period. Of all sorts
I
of.
haven't read into a lot of that stuff, so you'll
Oh,
have to give me
really?
a little
Sure.
bit of backstory on that. Yeah.
Okay, so there are really two schools of. I don't know if you've really thought about like the origin story of the virus.
I've heard that like there's like mounting evidence that it could have been created in a lab, but I haven't read anything else
Sure.
more than that.
I'm
That's
so
all I've
I'm
read.
so I'm
That
so
is
happy.
all I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, so
I feel like there's a
certainly
lot of people that like want that to be true. Like, I knew it. I
there
knew it.
there certainly
They want
are.
to end the world. They want to end the world. Like, there's like, I mean, I think that um, the Chinese Communist Party, the government there, is very bad. um, and I don't think it's okay to say kung flu. I was having this conversation with
Hmm.
my friend. I think that's very insensitive.
Right.
Uh, I think it's insensitive, but I wouldn't call it racist. But it's definitely insensitive. But um, the um, the government there is just, it's crazy. Like if it does turn out that it originated in a lab, they now there's all that stuff circulating on social media right now. I've been seeing it like reposted about the camps they have in, what is it, like Western China, the Uyghur
For the
Muslims or
Uyghur,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
a million of them. Yeah.
yeah, that's like,
There's a lot
I
more.
mean,
Yeah, there's a lot more to the story that people really don't know. But the last 100 years in China has been very
I've been
interesting historically.
I've been like following that stuff for a while too. I told my friends this one time, like we had this like bet, like because we were talking about China, and I was like, yeah, the government used to like sponsor like the killing of like landlords up until like the 60s or 70s or some like really recent time period. And they're like, what? No way, dude. And I was like, yeah, look it up. And surely like it's like for maybe 10, 15 years after so like 1950 to like 1960 or something like that.
I mean, you had Mao's revolution,
They
and then
Well, yeah, so they killed all the landlords, and Mao's revolution wasn't that long ago. It was the 1950s,
yeah. So let me.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and
there's
then yeah,
another. Yeah.
Tiananmen Square after that, and then
There's a lot.
uh,
Well, there's even a lot more that happened under Mao that people don't know about. So let's just do a little bit of exploring, because one of the problems is that people hear communism and like Plato's forms, it's so abstracted from Earth, they don't understand what it means as far as how it looks in
China's like
government
pseudo
practice.
communism. It's not actual
Right.
communism. It's pseudo communism.
I mean, it is. But it is, definitely in some ways avowed Marxism. Mao was absolutely a Marxist, and it resulted in
Yeah,
the killing of tens of millions of people. Um,
yeah, but now you look at the country today, and they have the most billionaires in the world.
they do.
Not per capita, but just
They also
sheer
have
number of
great
billionaires.
wealth inequality, though. Also, they have
Oh yeah,
terrible wealth inequality. You also have a place where you're not allowed to criticize your own leader.
yeah,
Right? I mean, literally, that's illegal. Look at what's going on in Hong Kong right now. There are
yeah.
people like there. I mean, Hong Kong is being
Have
people
you
are being
read any?
arrested in Hong Kong right now.
Have you read anything about that, like organ harvesting thing going on? That they, I don't know if they do it anymore because
Yeah.
there's some news stories about it,
Well,
but
so I mean, one of the things I want to mention that's like Tiananmen Square that was really brutal in this pseudo-communist state that resulted in Maoist China. One of the first things they did is, I mean, so the state did not want anything that would take away from the meaning or value of the state, and that included religion. So they went into Tibet. A lot of people during the revolution fled to Tibet. They fled to Taiwan. People won't, which and Reagan took that position with, standing with Taiwan as the real China when that was very controversial in the Cold War because many people in that revolution fled to Taiwan. But they went
Mhm.
into Tibet and they went to these monks in their monasteries where these Buddhist monks were living. And they just burned everything that they could find. A literature burn, all the houses of worship, they just burned it all to the ground. There were a lot of events like that were really brutal that just destroyed culture, destroyed, wiped out people's ways of living. And now we can't even talk about it. American reporters tried to get into China a few weeks ago and they were deported. It's a
Yeah,
completely different dynamic. I mean, truly it is.
I I think that this has shown a lot of people too that it's important to make stuff in America because like when we needed masks, for instance, like we are like trying to get them from China, and China's like, we need masks too, you know? And so there's certain things that need to be made in the US, like all essential items, you know, like medical supplies, everything like that. I think it's really important that we start making that stuff here so that we don't have these same problems.
Yeah,
And
so
like,
I mean,
I don't
yeah,
think this is like, I think this was like a good like test. Like if there was like a
right.
true like pandemic where you know, you had a significantly higher mortality rate. And you know, I know the cases are spiking, but the death
They
rate
are.
is down and it
Right.
continues to fall. And the fact of the matter is, just going off the numbers, I know like if you like are like 90 years old, your death rate is like way higher. I understand, but like just statistically, if you pick randomly from the U.S. population now, um, the death rate is, you know, like under 1% or something like that, right? I mean, like your chance of survival is well over 99%.
I will say, yeah, absolutely. The recovery rate is
Yeah,
like 98 or
and
99%.
and you can still possibly get it, and so we're still, you know, there's a lot that we don't know about the virus still, but
So let me
I
ask you,
mean,
yeah, so like,
there's some people that are still that are getting it after they've recovered from it, and
right.
so
So so without focusing on maybe wild theories about all that stuff and where it maybe originated, let's just look at
mhm.
this like an exercise. It is a test, right, for the United States. Not
Yeah, we
regardless,
failed, we
and
failed,
I would
but
agree we
like
failed big time.
we
So
failed, yeah.
let me hear your reasons for. I mean, let's just before we talk about what we should have done better, let's talk about all the places where you think there were different points of failure.
I think there
What do you
was
think we
a
should have done?
lack of coordination.
Okay.
So, like for
Okay.
instance, I heard a story again. I can't factually. I
That's okay.
need to
That's okay.
back it up. I know.
That's okay.
So, I heard that there was, you know, like when a lot of states were requesting for ventilators, there was some guy that said, "Oh, I got a bunch of ventilators." They gave him the money, you know, no questions asked, and then he did not deliver on the ventilators in the states the state that it happened in or whatever is now still trying to recoup the money that they gave this guy. Just like different stuff like that, like stuff not being built in the U.S. Like we don't have any. We had
Let's
all
talk
these
about
different
masks.
factories that started
Right.
shifting over to meet the demand, which was really good. But like we don't have a whole lot of factories here, period, anymore. So
if I could run something by you, I'd be so curious to see what you think about it that's related to this. That sort of ties back a little bit to what we were talking about. I don't know if you know Brett Weinstein, he has his own podcast, but he's been on a lot of different, Sam Harris, Joe Rogan. So Brett Weinstein's an evolutionary biologist. One of the things that he has pointed out that is interesting about this virus that makes him question whether or not it's natural made, but we'll assume it's a natural made virus that was inherited zoologically from a bat at a wet market. So we'll say, just running with that, one of the weird things about this virus is that it will be very good at transmitting between hosts indoors in close proximity, but outdoors, given distance, it's terrible at transmitting. And so one of the things he pointed out is that while people should be outdoors, distanced, getting sunlight and vitamins, we told everyone to stay inside. And basically he brought up the immune system question, and he just pointed out I don't know if you think that's interesting and what you think about maybe like some of the ironic things where it's like, ironically, going outside alone on a walk is probably better than being in a circulated home with the same air with 4 people who might have brought it in. Ironically.
So I'm not a doctor, but I've seen doctors say the exact same thing, and I have multiple videos actually saved of this. So yeah, like I definitely believe that those statements.
And I just named, by the way, also Brett Weinstein, who you guys can look up, but he was an evolutionary biologist. I've also heard this from Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Dr. Michael Osterholm, who works at the University of Minnesota studying infectious diseases. He's been studying infectious diseases for 30 years plus, and he has also attested to this. People can go look it up. So those are some sources for sure, just to check our bases. But
I forget what the name of that one doctor was that was talking about how like it was so politicized that he was having trouble getting prescriptions filled for hydroxychloroquine because he had people like call him back like, why do you need this? What are their symptoms? All that stuff. And
it was Dr. Jeff something, but yeah, I definitely know who you're talking about. I could look up his name now, but it's okay. But I know who you're talking about. There was a video circulating of him saying that he's treated a lot of COVID patients and talked to other doctors. Exactly. Yeah. He said, literally, I mean, that's the problem, though, that we take things and we just inject so much of our kind of like energy into it from other stuff that it's hard to just look at it, without all the other baggage or stuff around it, I guess. Sometimes it's hard for us to separate what is just politics and what is like an independent, analysis from somebody who's not beholden to any party. No one who's running for re-election here. Someone who's just like a clinician. It's very difficult. And I have some people who work in medicine in my family, and it's very hard for them to see what's going on, especially with something like masks, which really I think it seems like there's more consensus about masks being effective now, but in the beginning, I mean, it was
definitely hotly debated.
So I mean, and we could talk about what true communism is. I had some friends who were just like, it's fascism to make me wear a mask, and I was like, I don't think you know what tyranny. Like I don't think asking people to wear a mask is it? I mean, what do you think? Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Help me out here.
I think that if a business decides to deny you service, if a business decides to deny you service because you're not wearing a mask, they're totally within their right. And if you don't think, and like you're just in the wrong if if you don't think so. Like if you're in my store and I ask you to wear a mask, you need to wear a mask, or I won't help you. You know, that's just it's the rules. And yeah, there's people pushing down from above, and it feels like, you know, communism, where there's that invisible hand, you know, pushing down from above, telling you, you know, enforce this policy, even though it's not. Is it written law? Was there a mandate on it or anything like that?
I don't know if there's a
Uh,
mandate.
I
Certain
know
states,
Texas just
yeah,
did it. Texas just
yeah.
had a mandate, but I don't know about California. I think it's still like an advisory type thing. And so, but yeah, if but that being said, a lot of businesses are complying, and so their house, their rules type of thing. You know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But if you're outside, just, you know, walking your dog or whatever, and someone starts giving you crap for not wearing a mask, then just ignore them, because you know it's. I think this is like I believe that the single greatest tool that we have at stopping the spread of infection is social distancing. And I think if you have people, you know, not breathing on other people's faces, you're gonna have a better chance of keeping people healthy than, you know, crowding people with masks on. Because, you know, although the mask does block droplets or keep it, you know, right here, stuff gets out of the mask, right? Like that's undisputed. How much stuff gets out depending on the mask, blah blah blah, all that stuff. There's a scientific study I just saw where they took like a mannequin and they had like this like mist or whatever to like replicate a cough, and then they tried different masks to see which one stopped it the most, and the bandana was like the worst one. So like if you see someone with like a bandana on, like don't stand near them, because like it's not doing anything. So that was the worst one, but the best one was like the homemade like cloth, like double layered cloth one. But you could still see that it comes out in like a 2 to 3 inch like radius from around the openings. So I mean, it could potentially get on surfaces, stuff like that. I mean, if you touch it, the mask is worthless anyways. But I mean, people still touch it. I touch my mask. I've been touching my face this whole podcast. Like it's just it's a bad habit. But that's why I think the best thing that you can do is wash your hands and just stay away from people. You know, like don't stay inside all day, but stay away from people.
Yeah, I agree. I spend a lot of time outdoors completely alone in nature, just getting outside, just walking around, just getting. I might go walk 6, 8 miles, just down the street, just to get the walking in, and then I come
Yeah.
home, I'm tired, and I won't see a single person the whole time. Honestly, I've done it before, just for fun. I like to walk. It's fun. I don't mind it. Now I just wanna come in here because I think this is a good place to just take a break, and we can call this part one for our viewers. So thank you everybody for sticking around for part one. I greatly appreciate it. As always, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. You can also like this video or leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know how I'm doing. I always appreciate it. There's also a link in the description to my Patreon page where you can sign up, become a member, make a donation. You've been hearing from Jack Rollinson, good friend of mine and computer repair technician and engineering student at the University of California, Santa Barbara. We'll be right back. We have July, August, September, October, and November, and then it is the month in which we elect whomever we pick, right? I mean, that's the question. So tell me a little bit about your feelings when you were going into the 2016 election, and then some of your feelings about how things have panned out, and then we'll come to your feelings about where we are now.
So I said I was a Republican, or I said I am a Republican.
Right.
But I feel like I'm, you know, more of a centrist. But I lean maybe a little bit more towards the right. I pretty much voted for Hillary Clinton because of her foreign policy experience, as well as, you know, she was just more seasoned to the job.
Right.
You know, I just felt that she was more suited for the position than Donald Trump, and I also like
Well,
agreed with a
by
lot
the
of
way,
stuff that she
yeah.
with a lot of stuff that she was interested in, particularly the environment. That's one thing that I care very strongly about, and I'm also pro-choice. But pretty much everything else, I lean conservative on. Those are kind of the only two topics that I believe I lean left on. Are the pro-life
like
versus
environmental stuff,
pro-choice thing,
right? Absolutely.
and environmental stuff. Like I think that the stuff that Trump has done with the EPA is appalling.
Yeah.
And
It
that's
is.
those are the two. That's the main reason why I voted against Trump in 2016 was because I knew who he was putting in charge of the EPA, which was the attorney general for like Oklahoma. That
sued the EPA quite a number of times.
Yeah, and he was fighting the EPA his whole career, and he just destroyed a bunch of Oklahoma with like fracking and other crap like that, and so wasn't very down for that. I don't think that, and then you know, obviously Trump has done questionable things with the economy, and it feels like we're ahead right now, but I feel like we're kind of like borrowing from potential progress in the future, and so it could kind of slow us down a little bit in the long run, economic wise. Some of the policies he's enacted. And some of the stuff didn't have its intended effect. I mean, but that's common for every administration to pass legislation and it doesn't work out how they want it to. Like like with Obamacare, it made companies kind of prioritize hiring people as part-time instead of full-time.
Right.
Coming out of high school, it was hard for me to find a full-time job because of that Obamacare policy. Similarly, with the Trump tax cuts, there's like this video conference, or this was before COVID, so it wasn't a video conference. It was like in person, and his then economic advisor, I think he worked at Goldman Sachs. He was asking people like, how many of you guys are going to use tax cuts to hire more workers and stuff like that? And only like 3 people raised their hand out of like 100 CEOs or something like that. He's like, really? Like 3 people? Like, why am I not seeing any like more hands right now? And it's pretty simple too. If you're going to give tax cuts to companies with the intended purpose that they hire more people, that's just foolish, because if it's profitable for a company to hire more people, they just do it.
Right. Exactly.
If the demand is there, then they'll hire more people. Otherwise, if you just dump a bunch of cash on them, they're gonna do the smartest thing that they can with it, which in this case was buybacks of their stocks. A lot of companies did buybacks and inflated stock prices. So, but I mean, if you were invested, then you made a lot of money in 2017. It was like, if you bought anything in 2017, you made money pretty much.
Wow. So it sounds. I mean, this is just interesting because you're in 2016. You're thinking, I think Donald Trump's going to win, but I don't want him to. If I understand correctly, like I'd rather see Hillary Clinton in office, but you also have suspicion that she was not going to be elected.
Yeah.
Or maybe it would be close, as you said, but maybe it would tip a little more in Donald Trump's favor.
There's just I saw a lot of polls that said it was like 51% Donald Trump, or there's like some other polls, and yeah, I just the polls that I was reading, I believed to be correct, and they ended up being good indicators for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people came
that
out of that.
election.
And that
Because I mean, I didn't just guess and say that
right,
guy. You know, it
right,
was based off of research at the time
right,
where I was reading, and you know, a
right,
lot of people were saying that they were going to vote for him. So I was like, okay. And you know, and also they were saying, oh well, like all these polls were taken from this area or that area, and blah blah blah. And you know, if you look at the map, uh, you know, the electoral college did not work out in Hillary Clinton's favor. I knew that she was going to win California. I knew that she was going to win New York. All these other states, you know, you know, you just had a lot of people that felt burned by 2008. They felt like, you know, that they were abandoned. They lost their jobs. They never came back. You know, the rest is, you know, everyone knows what I'm talking about here. Um, and so then Donald Trump came along and said, I can solve all your problems. All your problems are coming from China, and I'm gonna,
right,
you know,
right.
I'm gonna put them in their place, etc. But in reality, I think that, you know, there's a lot of other factors. You know, China certainly treated us unfairly, but I agree very strongly with Andrew Yang's message. And he pretty much, you know, he was saying, you know, majority of the reason the jobs didn't come back were due to automation.
Absolutely. Which is true. I mean, we're getting more efficient in some ways,
Yeah, I mean, if
but the
you,
market doesn't account for the fact that maybe that's not the best choice for humanity. I mean,
sure,
in the
I
sense
mean,
that like we're getting better at technology and doing labor, but
yeah,
globalization has produced a lot of wealth, but it's also produced a lot of things that have resulted in some unsavory things, like the fact that we've literally automated away
yeah,
some
and
jobs.
that's created insane income inequality,
Yeah,
and
it
that's,
has.
you know, it's funny. I had, you know, I was all about Andrew Yang before he dropped out, and
He's a very
um,
nice person. He's a really, really nice
it
person.
would definitely sway my vote
Very smart.
if he was on Biden's cabinet or like in the VP slot. I don't think Biden's going to pick him for VP. Um, I think if he did, he'd win very easily, but I don't think he will. I think he's too malleable in the sense that he doesn't make any decisions for himself. It just feels like I never see him on camera, and when he does, it's very scripted, and it looks like he's on like take number 3 every time. You know,
Right.
looks like he practiced it a lot so that he
Yeah.
didn't like goof or gaff.
Right.
And
We go from
uh,
no rehearsal at all to like so
yeah,
much polish. It's right. It's
so
very
essentially
interesting.
for this election, I don't think it's made up yet. But I think it's completely dependent on who Biden picks as his vice president. I think that's going to be like the singular moment that decides this next election is who is Biden's VP pick. So it's pretty funny. This guy that is running for president has the power to decide who is essentially the president because, you know, he's just, does he have dementia? Is there like,
I don't know.
you know, like has he
Yeah.
been, do we know like what's going on? Because there's definitely something going on. I
There
mean,
is.
I'm not trying to be rude or insensitive, but if you watch the guy and you follow him, and I've watched a lot of video of him, and he's just a totally different person than when he was VP for Obama. He was sharp when he was Obama's VP. He's he is he is not the same person. That is for
That
sure.
was
He seems very different.
10 years ago. Yeah, it's been a long time. Absolutely, that's a good point. You know, and people are gonna say maybe we're being ageist or something, but I really do just
Well, I
I
think we
am.
need
Yeah,
someone younger in the office. I don't. I think
I do too.
the same way that, and especially where people are living longer and longer lives. You know,
Yeah.
I think that the same way we have an age restriction where someone who is like under 35 can't run for president. Is it 30 or 35?
35, 35. Yeah.
35. Yeah. I think you shouldn't be able to sit in office if you're over the age of 80.
Yeah.
and I think that's totally fair.
I
What is
totally
Biden? 80? 82? Something
70,
like
79.
yeah, and if you're gonna be 80 at any point while you're sitting president, you shouldn't be allowed to do it either. So like technically the last term that you could serve is when you're 76 years
75,
old.
76, yeah.
Yeah, and so if that's your first term, then that's your only term, is what I think it should be. So Trump would also that would have forced him into only one term.
Right.
I don't know like how people would feel about that, but I think that you're not able to do as good a job as someone who's maybe 10, 20 years younger, and I don't think that you're any wiser between I think from the time of your mid 20s all the way to around when you're 50 or 60 years old, you've lived a very full life at that point. You have
Yeah.
plenty of knowledge and wisdom, and that should be
Yep. That's
I
fair.
think that
Absolutely.
that's a great age to run a country at, but 80 years old is far too old in my opinion.
Absolutely. So, I mean, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about something else just really quick. So you've described yourself as we'll say a right-leaning centrist. Aside from environmental and reproductive rights, generally you lean right. Um, what do you make of the more Bernie Sanders take of the Democratic Party? Are you like when it comes to the? I know Joe Biden's sort of malleable, so it's hard to know exactly where he stands. Meaning, do you stand there right now, or is that just actually your position? But that
I
said,
think
like what do you think about what's going on as far as the party's identity and some of the inter-party dynamics?
are we talking about the party as a whole or just Bernie or
Oh no, yes. Let's talk about the party as a whole. Like just what we're noted. What's we're definitely seeing. I think a schism, but two schools, two at least a fork in the road, perhaps between
yeah.
a more Bernie-esque style politics and a more maybe Pete Buttigieg or Andrew Yang style politics.
I think Buttigieg was kind of like a
I actually don't know how you feel about Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, I'd be
I
curious to
didn't
hear.
like him too much. I think that he was inexperienced. I don't think he would have made a good president.
I mean, that's
Um,
very fair. He got a lot of criticism running South Bend, and
yeah, I just
yeah,
don't like. I think
that's fair.
he was energetic, but I think he should have maybe gone for like Congress or something like that first before making the leap to presidency. I mean, I know, and there's some people that have no experience like Andrew Yang or Donald Trump where they're
Right.
just like, oh, like I made large companies, but I would argue that that is more difficult than winning a local election to
Right.
become mayor of a metropolitan area in the United States. But I mean I've never run for mayor, so
I mean, my brother was
what would I
in.
know? So
Yeah, true. That said, yeah. So, just what do you? What I guess what are you just overall feelings about some of the party dynamics, just generally, in the Democratic Party as a whole?
can you like elaborate
Yeah,
what you mean
absolutely. I mean,
by
I mean, would you maybe, do you think you agree there's sort of a fork in the road and different sects forming or different lanes forming, as Nate Silver at 538 has put it, or, and what do you think about
I
some of
think
those
it's just
different,
kind of getting more and more like the other side refuses to. I mean, like, I don't think it's very hard for like people to come together and like agree on like single topics because I feel like the climate now is to the point where if you even lean a little to the right, you're all the way on the right, and we don't want to hear
right,
what you have to say. And then the people on the right are like, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear what you have to say.
right,
Uh,
absolutely,
and neither side wants to hear what the other has to say. I wish someone would like run as. That's why like I was so surprised when Andrew Yang didn't do his. I thought Andrew Yang was like gonna be like this black horse candidate that just came out of nowhere and stole the show. I don't know. Maybe America just wasn't ready for their first Asian American president, but I think he would have done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's very interesting. It's I would think that we'd be okay. We had our first African American president, but maybe that's a different. I don't know. I will say.
I don't know. I feel like.
I feel like there are some more particular reasons why, though, that Andrew Yang did not get covered as much that I would.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a major reason why he didn't do as good as I thought. I saw some very huge bias against him, even within
right.
the Democratic Party. I feel like they were scared of him. I feel like if they gave him even a little bit of slack, he would have just taken it and ran with it, And so I think that they kind of tried to shut him down for the most part. And there's tons of evidence.
I think these political parties play favorites. I think the media plays favorites too, for sure.
I don't think the Republicans have had like a champion for a while, and they tried so hard to rally behind Trump, and it's just not really working. And I was surprised that there's no one that stood up to him. I mean, I guess he is a sitting president and all, but
still,
I think a lot of Republicans now are kind of fed up with the current sitting Republicans, and I think it would be good for some change where, just across the board, all the states just vote new Republicans into Congress versus the people that have been sitting there for a long time.
I think you're right about that. So, last thing then about Andrew Yang, what is it? And really the question, what do you look for in a president? What are some of the qualities that you want in a president?
Leadership.
How do you measure good leadership? Like you particularly, how do you? I mean, what is indicative to you of a good leader?
Like putting people first, before yourself. Okay. Dynamic followership. The military does a good job of teaching you how to be a leader, and that's why I find it interesting. A lot of our greatest presidents had military experience.
Yep.
And I think it's like 74%, something like that, of U.S. presidents have been in the military.
Ulysses S. Grant was a great president who had wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, JFK was in the Navy. There was, Democrat and Republican. There was
Truman,
people.
Eisenhower, absolutely. George Washington.
I think the last one we had was George W. Bush. He was in the Air National Guard, I believe, and then his father
HW
might have flown. Yeah, I think he might have flown in World War II. I can't remember though. But he was a pilot. I just can't remember what time period he flew in. But and then Clinton was not. Yeah, and then so Obama was not in the armed forces.
What do you think about Tulsi Gabbard? Tulsi has served.
Yeah, she was good. Again, she was treated very unfairly by the media, just like Andrew Yang. I feel like she was kind of a strong, very moderate person. She wasn't, and I think the Democrats saw these two people that were kind of like, they're kind of like free thinkers, and they're more moderate than a lot of the other Democrats that were on the stage. And I just think that maybe they thought they wouldn't align as much with their base, or they wouldn't see eye to eye on everything, and they just thought, maybe the people to back would be someone that is just going to agree with them on everything, like Joe Biden. That's why I think, Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang didn't get a fair shake, is because they were just, in the eyes of the DNC, they were just kind of radical, I guess.
It's very interesting that the people that are trying to be more appealing in a general setting would sort of look at it as radical, but I think you're right.
It's funny too, because they say that they're the party of diversity and everything like that. And they, it really feels like they shoved the most diverse candidate at the time that made it the farthest, Andrew Yang, just like pushed him out. And there's a bunch of shady stuff going on with the Iowa caucus with Andrew Yang. I was like initially seeing like, oh, he did very well, and then they were like, oh, he got like 0 votes, and then like after like the recount, and I was like, what is going on? Like, I've never donated to a political campaign before. I mean, I know I'm very young. I've been through like 1 or 2, but like I've never donated to any type of political campaign before, but I donated like $10-20 to Andrew Yang when he was running. So
because you liked him.
Yeah, I wanted to see it win. I thought that it would help him get on the debate stage. It was like when he was like trying to like meet the deadline for one of the debates, and he narrowly made it. And I feel like that $10 might have went a long way in getting him on the stage. I just felt like he was worth supporting so that other people could hear his ideas.
Right.
And if they didn't like him, then they didn't like him. And I just wish that he was given more of a fair platform to speak on. Because it's interesting. I feel like right-wing media treated him better than the left-wing media did. He appeared on Fox several times, and Tucker Carlson was super nice and energetic with him. And he even said that he couldn't agree more with him on a lot of topics. And, he was running as a Democrat. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's very interesting. I just think
on that note, I mean, just really quick, Fox will do things where like Brett Baer will have a Bernie Sanders town hall, and that's just fascinating to me because it's like you definitely do see some people on the right that will reach out, to and say come on our show, and like Tucker Carlson doing that with Andrew Yang and with that's just I think that's an interesting observation that people should know about.
And it's good to see Democratic candidates willing to go onto those shows too, because
totally
there's a fair number of them that will not go on Fox News. And I've never seen them on Fox News before.
I understand their hesitation, but I also think it's great that we can actually have a dialogue, a civil dialogue, where one side, the right, reaches out and someone on the left says, yes, okay. And it's civil, and it ends well. And it's possible. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia were best friends for like 50 years. It's just something that we've lost, I think, that sense of unity despite even a D or an R. I think that letter next to people's names has really taken on a lot more meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, do you feel like that is happening?
Well, I want to change. I've been meaning to change to independent, just because California is one of those states where I can't vote either way in the primary, and so I wasn't able to vote for Andrew Yang, even though I was supporting him in this. I really wanted to win. I wasn't even able to vote for him in the primary because I'm Republican, and so I can only vote Republican in the state of California in the primaries, which is stupid. Like that should be across the board. Like you can just vote whatever way you want. It shouldn't matter. Your political party should not inhibit you from voting a certain way. I should have the freedom to vote any way I want in an election. And that's why I want to change to independent, because they do have that freedom to vote any way they want in an election. And that's a free election for me, is I can vote Democrat, Republican, for anyone. Just because I have an R next to my name doesn't mean that, oh, I'm not allowed to vote for these people. Like that doesn't sound free and democratic to me,
Right.
So
it doesn't. That said, I'd like to end on that note until we meet again. But thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
it was fun talking.
Yeah, it was really fun talking. And thank you everybody for staying with us and listening. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you learned something. And I appreciate, again, your time, Jack, so much. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode of The Riley Lewis Show. I know it's not my typical daily politics podcast, but I thought it was a very good conversation with a very good friend of mine that I've known since I was a very young child. So it was a really interesting experience for me, and it was fun, and I hope it was fun for you. If you'd like to support me and support more of my content, you can start by hitting that big subscribe button down below. Subscribing to my channel really helps me out. You can also like this video, which really helps me out, or leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know how I'm doing. You can also visit the link in the description of this video where you can find the link to my Patreon page, where you can go to my page, sign up, become a member, and make a donation. You can also find me at The Riley Lewis Show on Anchor.fm, where you can donate to my virtual wallet, or you can find me on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, or Spotify. Again, you've been listening to The Riley Lewis Show.